Hello world, and welcome to Quiet Defaults. Today we're talking about something that quietly shapes almost every financial decision you make, often without you realizing it. Why certain choices feel uncomfortable even before you evaluate them. Why some options feel irresponsible before the numbers are considered. Why you can understand your situation clearly, yet still feel constrained. This isn't about discipline. And it isn't about intelligence. It's about the reference points your mind uses to decide what feels acceptable. What people commonly experience. Most people believe they're responding to their current financial reality. If income improves, confidence should follow. If stability increases, anxiety should decrease. But for many people, that doesn't happen. Even when circumstances change, decisions still feel heavy. Stress lingers longer than expected. Certain choices continue to feel off-limits. That friction usually isn't coming from the present. It's coming from an older reference point that hasn't been updated. Why the mind needs anchors. The human brain is not designed to evaluate every decision from scratch, especially under uncertainty. When information is incomplete, which is almost always the case with money, the mind looks for something stable to compare against. A rule, a belief, a definition. That reference point becomes an anchor. Anchors reduce mental effort. They create consistency. They allow decisions to be made quickly. This is useful until conditions change. Where anchoring bias comes from. In the early 1970s, psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman studied how people make judgments under uncertainty. They observed something consistent. When people didn't know the right answer, they didn't freeze. They latched onto the first available reference point and adjusted from there. Even when that reference point was irrelevant, it still shaped judgment. This tendency was named anchoring bias. Importantly, it was not described as a flaw. It was described as a shortcut, a way the mind stabilizes decision-making when certainty is missing. That matters because modern financial life is full of uncertainty. Why anchoring shows up so strongly with money? Money decisions combine several difficult elements: uncertainty, emotion, identity, long-term consequences. That combination increases reliance on mental shortcuts. So anchors don't just influence decisions, they determine which options feel available before conscious reasoning begins. That's why some choices feel wrong instantly, even when they make sense. Anchor Type 1: Definitions of responsibility. Many people carry a strong internal definition of what responsible financial behavior looks like. That definition, often formed early, from family norms, cultural expectations, early advice. For example, responsibility means permanence. Responsibility means predictability. Responsibility means avoiding risk. Once internalized, this definition becomes a filter. Decisions that don't match it feel irresponsible even when they improve flexibility or reduce stress. The discomfort doesn't come from the outcome. It comes from violating a definition that hasn't been re-examined. Anchor Type 2: Identity-based anchors. Another powerful anchor is identity. People absorb labels early. I'm bad with money. I'm cautious. I'm not good at financial decisions. These labels often form during periods of constraint, not capability. Once internalized, they shape future behavior. Opportunities feel not meant for me. Growth feels temporary. Success feels accidental. The anchor here isn't skill. It's self-perception. And self-perception limits choice long before logic is applied. Anchor Type 3: Rules that once brought relief. Many people anchor to the first financial rule or framework that reduced anxiety. A savings rule, a budgeting philosophy, an investment principle. That relief creates trust. So even when circumstances evolve, people hesitate to adjust. Not because the rule is optimal, but because breaking it feels destabilizing. They mistake emotional comfort for correctness. Why anchors are so hard to update? Anchors persist because they do important psychological work. They reduce decision fatigue, create consistency, simplify complexity. Updating an anchor requires uncertainty, revisiting old choices, accepting that something once helpful may no longer fit. That process is uncomfortable, so the mind defaults to familiarity even when it causes friction. This isn't irrational, it's protective. How outdated anchors affect financial behavior. When anchors don't update, people may delay decisions longer than necessary, avoid choices that would reduce stress, feel guilt for rational behavior, remain stuck in patterns that no longer serve them. They often interpret this as a personal flaw. In reality, it's misalignment between past reference points and present conditions. What actually helps? Anchoring bias isn't solved by force. It loosens when reference points become visible. Before a decision hardens, ask, what does this feel irresponsible relative to? When did that reference point form? Does it still reflect my current reality? These questions don't demand change. They restore evaluation. And evaluation reduces friction even when decisions remain the same. Why awareness improves retention and calm. When people recognize their anchors, guilt softens. Rigidity eases. Options reappear. Decisions feel lighter, not because they're easier, but because they're no longer constrained by outdated rules. That shift alone improves financial confidence. Closing reflections. Anchoring bias isn't about poor judgment. It's about relying on reference points that once made sense and now quietly limit choice. The problem isn't that you have anchors. It's that some were set under conditions that no longer exist. Updating them isn't reckless. It's adaptive. Thank you for spending this time with quiet defaults. Stay aligned. Build systems that reflect your present reality. Until we meet again.